Hey guys, welcome to SK Technical Hub. I hope all you are doing well.
So today we are going to cover some tricky and twisted interview questions for Core Java. If you like this video, please let me know in comment section so that I can make more such tricky interview questions taking complex Java topics too. So without further delays, let's get started for the same. So the very first question is, why Java is not 100% object oriented? So this is one of the favorite questions of interviewers. Like, as in, we know that Java is an object-oriented language, but why is it not 100% object-oriented? So that you will be answering that in the way that because we have primitive data types, namely boolean, char, float, int, double, long, short. There are such 8 types of primitive data types which we use while we are programming in Java, and hence Java is not completely object-oriented language. Because when you say that it is object-oriented, it means that everything should revolve around only objects. But these are not objects. So as a roundabout ways, what Java did was they have created some wrapper classes. So what are these wrapper classes? They are nothing but the way to wrap your primitive data types into something called as objects of that classes. So just create this wrapper classes by making this B capital, by making this B capital, by making this C capital. So they have created such wrapper classes for you. The second question arises is why pointers are not allowed in Java. So the very basic reasons for these are that they are unsafe, first of all. Secondly, they increase the complexity of program, and since Java is known for its simplicity, adding the concept of pointers will contradict them. And third and very important point that why pointers are not used is that JVM is the one who is responsible for allotting or deallocating the memories for you. So what pointers do? They point to the particular memory location, and if that particular thing is actually done by JVM internally, then why do you need pointers for the same? Thus, in order to avoid direct access to memory by the users, because users can do some faulty operations on those memory locations and they can manipulate the whatever it is present on the particular memory location. So to avoid that direct access to users to the memory, pointers are always discouraged in Java. So the very important point, if you have a very short period of time to reply to that answer, just answer with the third point and you will be good to go. That JVM is responsible, so why do we need the pointers? The third question is, what is JIT compiler in Java? This is one of the very basic questions, you should be knowing it for sure, but many of those doesn't know. So this is particular question for them. So if you have a Java source code, what happens is there is something called as JDK. You create a Java source code, the JDK has Java c.exe, which is nothing but a compiler. This compiler converts your code to byte codes. Once you have a byte code with you, it goes into GRE or JVM and it contains nothing but the 2 things, that is interpreter and just-in-time compiler. So what happens is, this byte code makes your code, Java code, completely machine independent. So JDK and GRE are machine dependent, but whenever you compile your code into byte codes, so those byte codes does not depend on any of the operating system underlying to your particular system. So what happens is, whenever you get your byte codes, you can convert it into machine language, which is understood, which can be understood by your system. So for converting your byte codes, which is machine independent, you need 2 things, the interpreter and the JIT compiler. So what will interpreter do? It will go line by line with your byte codes and convert your code into machine language, which is understood by the system. But making this interpreter, it decreases your efficiency and it actually decreases your, increases your time to completely convert your byte code into machine code, and hence JIT compiler was introduced. So JIT compiler is actually one which is responsible for performance optimization of Java applications at runtime. And how does that do it? It does it because the interpreter is slow. To make some code fastly compiled into machine code, JIT compiler is introduced, and it compiles bunch of code into the machine code just by compiling and not by interpreter, or just not by interpreting. And hence JIT compiler is used to convert your byte codes into machine codes. So this was all about JIT compilers. If you still have doubt, let me know in the comment section. The fourth question is, why is string immutable in Java? So we all know that string is immutable. That is, you cannot modify once the object is created. So the first reason is that you all know about string pools. So what is string pool? This is nothing a place where all the literals of strings are kept. So the particular pool requires your string to be immutable, Otherwise, the shared reference can be changed from anywhere, and hence they are completely immutable. And the second very important reason that why string is immutable is that string is something which is made immutable because of security purpose, because string is shared on different areas called as like file systems, networkings, database connections, passwords, user IDs. So making them immutable allows you to secure and make that particular safe so that nobody can change the reference, and even if anybody tries to change the data in that particular string, a new string object is created and which is not considered the same as the previous one. So this is why for the security purpose your string is completely immutable. The fifth question arises what is marker interface? So marker interface is nothing but an interface which has no data members or functions defined into it. It is simply a completely empty interface. So example is serializable and clonable. Here I have given you a screenshot of my Eclipse JDK. That is, this is particular clonable interface. This clonable interface has the starting braces and end braces. So whenever you try to get into this clonable serializable interface, just go to your STS or Eclipse, which is whatever IDK you use. In that you do Control Shift T. Once you do that, you will be able to open the existing Java libraries and classes. So in that, just try clonable and serializable and you will be able to see that you have opening and ending braces and there is nothing between it. So what is markable interface? When such question arises to you, just answer that this is something but interface which has no data members or member functions. It is completely empty. And then next question the interviewer will ask is, then why do we have these interfaces and clonable such as clonable and serializable? You will be answering that as these are nothing but a marker interfaces. Marker means these interfaces tells your compiler that you have something specific to do with it. It is just a particular information or a metadata to your compiler or GTK that this is something related to cloning or something related to serialization. So this is why marker interfaces are used in Java. Next question arises is, can you override a private or a static method in Java? This is one of the very twisted questions which arises in an interview to you. So let's give it an answer in one by one. So as I've told you in previous lectures also, that method overriding or dynamic polymorphism is something very good topic and which is very much asked in interviews. So first of all, you cannot override a private or a static method. Now the interview will ask you why. So you will answer it in two steps. First, the private method is something which is very peculiar in a particular class and cannot be extended to any of the other classes. So in the subclass, it will not be accessible. You will not be able to see the private method in the another subclass. That is why even creating another private method with the same name in the child class will actually create just a single another method and it will not actually be overridden from the parent. Hence, the concept of overriding does not happen in private method as it is not even visible in the child class. The second thing why static methods cannot be overridden in the child class is that if you create a similar method, a static method with the same return type, same name, same argument, then what will happen with the static is it will hide the superclass and this is known as method hiding. I've told you in the previous lectures also, right? So this is how method hiding is done, and hence whenever you try to do overriding or dynamic polymorphism with static method, you will not be able to do the overriding. It will actually be hiding. And one more very important thing you should understand here is that you can always you should always call the static method with class name, but you can create an object and with that object reference you can call the static method. You will not get any error. So this is very important thing. Many of the people don't even know that you can call the static method with object reference. You can, but you should not. The next question arises is, does finally always execute in Java? So we know that finally method is something which happens to execute whenever something error happens. So even if your try catch happens or not, this finally will always execute. But there are two cases when this particular thing finally method does not execute. That is, on the first when it's system.exit and second is a system.crash. Whenever your system crashes, this particular finally method does not execute. And secondly, whenever you call explicitly system.exit function, in that case, the finally won't execute. So these are the two conditions, only two conditions. First, you explicitly call system.exit, and secondly, with any of the circumstances, your system crashes. As soon as the system crashes, finally won't execute. Next, what methods does the object class have? So this is again one of the theoretical questions that the interviewer asked from the basics, that there is an object class. So what is an object class? Object class is a parent of all the objects you create in Java. So this is one of the parent in the complete object tree hierarchy in Java. So java.lang.object class is the parent of all, and they have following methods. First is the clone. So what does this clone method do? It returns the copy of that particular object. So if you have an employee object, if you try to clone it, you will get a completely same cloned object. The equals method, it indicates whether the particular object is equal to or not, and currently in the object class, the equals method does nothing but uses the double equal to operator, which considers comparing two particular objects only with the object references. If you want to override it, you can override whatever methods are present in object class, but you have to give your own implementation, like string has given the implementation for equals method. The third is the finalize method. This particular method is called by garbage collector when your object is about to be garbage collected, and when there is no references to a particular object is there, then garbage collector is called on that particular object. So you have to explicitly write this finalize method if you want to do something before the garbage collector comes and collects your object. The fourth is the get class method. It returns the runtime class of an object. Then the hash code returns the hash code value of the particular object. The toString is nothing but a string representation of that object. Currently it will contain the hash code, something like that. All these methods, notify all, wait, and wait with the three different parameters. These are all the methods which is used for threading. So I will cover these in the next videos, the upcoming videos, when I will be covering the threads and many other things. But as for the interview purpose, this is important to know. Then how can you make your class immutable? This is something very important and very, very tricky question. So you have to do 6 steps to make your particular class immutable. The first step is on the very basic, the class. To make your classes final. So first thing, whenever you create a particular class, make that class final. Secondly, to alter the fields. So what will you do with the fields? Make the fields private, so they are not accessible outside. Secondly, all the mutable fields should be made as final. So you have made it private, so it will not be available to other classes. If you have made it to final, that means once it is assigned, it cannot be reassigned or initialized. Initialize all the fields via constructor while preparing a deep copy. I'll show you in the upcoming videos, but remember these steps for the interview purpose. Then these are something you have to do with the 3 things you have to do with the fields. So 1 thing with the class, 3 things with the fields. 4th thing, do not provide setters for variable, you can provide the getters though. And last but not the least, always perform cloning of object in the getter to return a copy rather than returning the actual object reference. So never return the real object reference, but always give a copy to it. So these are the 6 methods by which you can make your class immutable, similar to what your string is. So your string is immutable. To make your custom class, say employee, as immutable, first make that class private, final, so that it is not overridden. Your fields or the instance variables as private and final, and then do not provide setters at all. In the getters, what you have to do, you have to provide the deep copy of the fields, and then always return the copy rather than returning the actual object references in the getter methods. Now next question similar to it is, what is singleton and how do we make a particular class singleton? So this is very tricky question again. So singleton is nothing but a design pattern by which you can create a singleton class, that is a class who has only one instance at one particular time in one particular JVM. So understand and remember these 3 things. One instance at a given time in one JVM. Though when you do serialization, this particular thing gets ruined or completely deniable. So how do we create a particular singleton class? The first thing, सबसे पहले first make this particular animal constructor private. So as soon as you make your constructor private, you will make sure that nobody can create an object of it. But now you need one object. So for creating one single object, you have to create a private static instance of that class itself. So this is my similar class. and this is my singleton instance which is initially null. Now if it is null and I have a constructor private, then how will I get one single instance? So you have to create a static block for the same, which will return your same class object. And in that class you will check if this particular instance is null. If it is null, then create a new with a new keyword. And if it is not null, then return that instance itself. So this particular block will make sure that you have only one instance at a time, which is created with this new keyword, and next time you cannot create it because the same instance will be returned if it is not null. So this is how you create a singleton method. So that was all about the top 10 interview questions.